The day after we buried my grandfather, a woman we'd never met came to the house, not with condolences, but with a clipboard claiming our family farm now belonged to her HOA. We were still cleaning up after the service. My brother was boxing up old tools in the barn, and I was at the kitchen table sorting through paperwork. Wills, deeds, receipts for tractor parts dating back to the 90s. That's when we saw the SUV creeping up the long gravel drive. At first, I figured it was a family friend dropping something off, but the car was too clean, too polished, and definitely not from around here. She stepped out wearing a cherry red windbreaker, white slacks, and a smug kind of confidence. "I'm Karen," she said like it explained everything, "president of the Hawthorne Ridge Homeowners Association." My stomach sank. Hawthorne Ridge was the subdivision just over the hill. They'd built those cul-de-sacs 5 years ago, carving cookie-cutter homes into the edge of what used to be our east pasture. We'd ignored them. My grandfather had made it clear they had no business with us. "Your grandfather's property was included in the Phase 4 annexation back in 2007, Karen continued, flipping pages in her binder. "Technically, this parcel is now under association management." I told her flatly, "We're not part of Hawthorne Ridge." She smiled like she'd been expecting that. "That's a common misunderstanding. He opted out of the original build, yes, but because no formal exemption was filed with the county, and since the land is adjacent, the HOA retains architectural oversight." She handed me a thick packet. "There are a few violations we'll need to address. Livestock's not permitted. That old barn doesn't meet our visibility standards. And there's an unregistered structure behind the house." I didn't answer. I was too busy staring at the cover page. Notice of covenant inclusion and intent to inspect. She said, "We'll give you 30 days to start bringing it into compliance before we begin issuing fines." Then she walked back to her car like it was just another house call. My brother came in through the mudroom, wiping his hands. "What was that?" I said. "An HOA president thinks this place is hers now." He snorted. "She's about to learn otherwise." She came back 3 days later. This time, she didn't bother knocking. I walked out to find her in the front yard, taking photos of the barn from the gravel path. A printed citation was already taped to our mailbox, bright pink, like a parking ticket. I pulled it off and read, "Has structure violation, unapproved agricultural buildings." Below that, "Fine assessment, $250. Payment due in 15 days. Karen didn't even look up from her phone. "This barn's well past code, roofline's non-compliant, and it hasn't been painted in over 10 years. I stayed calm. "This barn was here before Hawthorne Ridge even existed." She smiled again, that same smug grin she wore the first time. "And now it's not. HOA regulations are active, and since you haven't filed for recognition or transition, we're moving forward with enforcement." She handed me a second notice. "This one for the livestock pens out back. You'll want to have those animals removed before next month. Livestock strictly prohibited under Ridge guidelines." I didn't argue. I didn't give her anything. Instead, I walked back inside and started documenting every piece of this nonsense. Photographs, GPS-stamped video, the dates on the violation letters. I opened up the county records system and pulled up the parcel lines. Sure enough, our farm was still listed as private with no attached HOA designation. I printed everything. That night, my younger brother sat at the kitchen table, flipping through the citations. "She's bluffing, right?" "She's not just bluffing," I said. "She's testing what she can get away with." We didn't tell anyone in the family yet. No reason to stir up more stress while we were still grieving, but Karen was already spreading word. A neighbor we'd known for years, Mrs. Delaney, mentioned at church that someone told her the farm was finally getting absorbed. Absorbed, she said, like we were some overgrown lot waiting for a lawn crew. Karen was playing her hand too early. She thought she had power because we hadn't pushed back. But we weren't staying quiet out of fear. We were waiting. Because once I responded, once I stepped into this, it wasn't going to be a conversation anymore. It would be legal and permanent. By the following week, Karen had escalated from printed violations to full-on trespassing. I caught her mid-stride, walking the side of the property line with a man in khakis holding a measuring wheel. She saw me and waved like it was normal. "We're surveying for compliance enforcement," she called out. The man with her was from a private security firm, not the county. His jacket said, "Site control, not law, not code enforcement, just intimidation." "You're not authorized to be here," I said firmly, walking down from the porch. Karen pulled out a form. Actually, we're initiating a lien assessment. These inspections are part of that process. She wasn't bluffing anymore. She was preparing to seize. My brother started toward them, but I held up my hand. I'd seen enough. That night, I pulled out a letterhead I hadn't used in a long time. Not for personal matters, anyway. Office of the State Attorney General, Civil Enforcement Division. My name sat 5 lines down from the top. I'd spent 22 years building a career in land rights, fraud prosecution, and municipal overreach. I'd worked cases that ended real estate empires and shut down illegal annexations in courtrooms that Karen's kind never even knew existed. And I'd stayed quiet because I'd wanted to handle this privately. But she pushed too far. So I drafted a formal cease and desist notice citing unlawful enforcement, property encroachment, and civil harassment under state code. I attached a copy of the county zoning map showing our land clearly unbound by HOA authority. I included photos, the names of the surveyors she brought without permits, and quotes from her fake lien paperwork. Then I hand-delivered it to her mailbox in a plain manila envelope. No lawyer, no fanfare, just the law. By 8 a.m. the next morning, I got a call from Ed Ralston, the actual HOA chair. Karen wasn't even acting with full board approval. She told us it was a voluntary transition, he said. We had no idea she'd threatened you with liens. I let him talk. Then I told him what court she'd be summoned to if this wasn't resolved in writing. He went quiet. Karen wasn't just in hot water anymore. She was standing in a courtroom she didn't even know existed, and I was about to walk her straight into it. Karen didn't respond to the cease and desist, but her lawyer did. A full apology letter arrived by certified mail filled with phrases like misunderstanding of scope, unauthorized action, and my personal favorite, our client acted outside the boundaries of HOA authority. The violations? Voided. The fines? Erased. The lien threats? Withdrawn in writing, and the board? They turned on her instantly. At the next HOA meeting, which I attended quietly in the back, Ed read a statement. Effective immediately, Karen Whitmore has been removed from her leadership position pending further investigation into her actions. She wasn't there to hear it. Word was she'd hired a crisis attorney, not to defend her HOA work, but to help her avoid civil charges. Apparently, I wasn't the only property owner she'd harassed. 3 other families were preparing complaints, including one who said she trespassed during a baby's nap time to measure a swing set. But that wasn't the end. I got a second envelope, this one from a county compliance office. Inside was a signed memo. A formal investigation had been opened into whether Hawthorne Ridge's original Phase 4 annexation paperwork was even valid. It turns out there had been errors in the way Karen filed the land boundaries over a decade ago. And that's where I'll leave you for now. Because if you're enjoying this kind of real-world justice, where the quiet ones play the long game and win legally, go ahead and like this video and subscribe to the channel. You won't want to miss what comes next, especially once we start talking about what the county found when they opened her old HOA records. For now, the farm's safe. The barn stands. The animals are where they've always been. And every morning, my brother and I walk that same gravel path our grandfather once did. No clipboards, no fines, no strangers with badges that aren't real. But something tells me we haven't heard the last of Karen. Because people like her, they don't vanish quietly. They get louder.